The night was supposed to be calm over Washington. The kind of silence that only the nation's capital knows. Sacred, heavy, watched by history. But at 10:37 p.m., that silence shattered. Tires screeched against the cold pavement. A metallic roar echoed down 17th Street. In one violent motion, a vehicle slammed into the White House security barrier. The sound of steel colliding with power itself. The alarms ignited in a chorus of chaos. Red lights strobed across the front lawn like warning pulses from the heart of America. Secret Service agents rushed forward, their radios erupting with coded commands, boots pounding against the ground. Inside, under the chandelier glow of the West Wing, President Donald Trump was said to be in the residence the most protected man in the world. Now, within reach of danger. For one split second, no one knew what they were dealing with. Terror? Accident? Statement? The question hung heavy over the night air, thicker than the smoke that rose from the bent gate. The Secret Service formed a wall of bodies, weapons drawn, the front line of a silent war the public never sees. Behind them, the White House glowed, majestic yet suddenly mortal. The world's most secure address was breached, if only by inches. And those inches carried weight, political, psychological, symbolic. If a car could crash this close, what else could break through? What did it mean when the fortress of democracy could be touched by the chaos outside its gates? Reporters scrambled for confirmation. Cable networks switched their headlines mid-broadcast. Online, 1,000 theories ignited at once. An assassination attempt. A message from foreign enemies. A protest gone wrong. Every tweet, every post carried the same unspoken fear. If the White House isn't safe, who is? Within minutes, the driver was subdued and taken into custody. The Secret Service announced there was no ongoing threat. But the tone of their statement betrayed something deeper, the tremor of what could have been. Because America didn't just witness a crash that night. It witnessed a breach in perception. A reminder that even the most guarded walls can tremble. Across the city, lights flickered on in government offices. Calls went out to intelligence agencies, military liaisons, and communications directors. Was this coordinated? Was the president the target? Was this the start of something larger? Every question came with its own kind of dread. And then came the footage, shaky phone video taken by a witness across the street. The sound of impact, the blinding flash of headlights, and the distant echo of sirens closing in. It spread across social media like wildfire, looping endlessly, replaying America's vulnerability in real time. But here's where it gets deeper. This wasn't just about one driver or one barrier. This was about symbolism, about what it means when the heart of American power, that pristine white mansion on Pennsylvania Avenue, feels even momentarily penetrable for millions watching. It was a metaphor for something larger unraveling. In living rooms across the country, people leaned forward. They didn't just see a crash, they saw reflection. Reflection of the chaos, division, and fragility that had come to define their nation's mood. The hero, the idea of safety, order, control, was tested in front of them. The villain, chaos, anger, unpredictability, had found a way to reach the doorstep. And as the night deepened, one question burned in the mind of every viewer. Was this a warning, or the beginning of something far worse? Because this wasn't just a broken gate. It was a crack in the illusion of invincibility. And that crack was about to widen. The impact still echoed through the city like a warning shot. By 10:38 p.m., every security feed within a mile radius of the White House had gone red. Sirens wailed across 17th and E Streets NW, the air thick with urgency. The barrier, one of the strongest points of the presidential perimeter, had been struck. It wasn't supposed to happen. Not here. Not ever. In the darkness, the mangled front of a sedan pressed against twisted metal. Steam hissed from the crumpled hood as agents flooded the scene. Flashlights cut through the smoke. Radios crackled with words the public would never hear, code names, clearance levels, tactical orders. Within seconds, the driver was on the ground, hands restrained, surrounded by a half-circle of drawn weapons. The United States Secret Service Uniform Division had responded like muscle memory, trained reflex over fear. Asterisk, no gunfire. No explosion. Just a man, a car, and a barrier that shouldn't have been touched. But even that small victory came with unease. Every agent on the line knew what that sound meant. Vulnerability. The fortress had been kissed by chaos. Asterisk, across the perimeter, layers of defense came alive. The iron fences, the bulletproof posts, the electronically fortified gates, all built to stop the unthinkable, were now part of an unfolding investigation. The Secret Service swept the vehicle. Bomb-sniffing units circled the wreck. Mechanical arms checked for hidden devices. Vehicle deemed safe, came the report over encrypted radio. But safety felt temporary. Because for all the technology, for all the steel, it was human reaction that saved the moment, and human imperfection that allowed it to happen. Asterisk, inside the White House, lights blazed in the Situation Room. Advisors and aides whispered updates as President Trump remained inside the residence. Politico confirmed what the world had suspected. The president was indeed on the premises during the crash. That single detail changed everything. It wasn't just a fence breach anymore. It was proximity to power. The kind of headline that could shake global confidence within seconds? Asterisk. News outlets scrambled for clarity. Politico, The Washington Post, The Associated Press, each confirmed the same outline of events. A crash, an arrest, a vehicle deemed safe. But between the lines, there was an undercurrent of disbelief. The White House, the epicenter of American might, had been tested, and for one heartbeat, the system had to prove it still worked. Asterisk to most Americans. The White House is mythology, the untouchable palace of democracy, the living monument of power. Behind its gates, decisions are made that shape the world. But in that moment, those gates became something else. Fragile. The symbol cracked, if only slightly, and everyone felt it. Asterisk's agent spoke later of instinct taking over. "We don't think we move," one officer said, his voice steady, his eyes hollow. Behind every security camera and radio code, there were men and women trained to face the unimaginable. They were the invisible wall, the last line between the commander-in-chief and the chaos outside. And that night they held. Still, the questions began to multiply faster than the answers. Who was the driver? What was his intent? How had he reached that close without triggering a prior stop? Was this a coordinated act or a lone outburst of desperation? For every official statement, there were 10 whispers of conspiracy. Online, the theories grew teeth. Foreign sabotage, political message, domestic unrest. Each version more charged than the last. Asterisk, inside the communications office, aides debated how to control the story. The optics mattered. Every image of that crushed gate carried symbolic weight, strength tested, order shaken. In the hours that followed, the message became clear. Contain the panic. Project control. But for millions watching the live coverage, control looked fragile. Asterisk, for the Secret Service, this was personal. Their mission isn't glory. It's guardianship. They live in shadows, waiting for moments they pray never come. But when it did, they moved like lightning. The driver barely had time to exit the car before being pinned to the ground. No shots fired. No second chances. Just efficiency honed by decades of drills. Asterisk, that man, the villain, in this cinematic collision remains faceless for most of America. His name didn't matter in the first wave of reports. His act did. He became the symbol of intrusion, of the chaos pressing against the nation's order. And though he carried no weapon and posed no ongoing threat, his defiance, deliberate or not, pierced something far deeper than steel. Asterisk, as dawn approached. The glow over the White House returned to its quiet white. Crews repaired the damaged barrier, sweeping debris into neat piles. By sunrise, the physical evidence would be gone. But the psychological mark was permanent. People would wake up and see headlines that whispered insecurity. Vehicle crashes into White House gate. President Trump inside. The sentence itself felt surreal. In coffee shops, on trains, in living rooms, the same conversation unfolded. How could that happen? If the most fortified building in America can be touched, what else stands exposed? Anxiety rippled through a nation already divided and distrustful. This was more than a security story. It was a metaphor for modern America, powerful, yet constantly tested by chaos from within and without. Asterisk critics of the administration leaped on the symbolism. Supporters, meanwhile, rallied around the swift response as proof of strength. The same event, two narratives, the eternal tug-of-war that defines U.S. politics. One side saw failure. The other saw resilience. Hero versus villain, order versus disorder, playing out again. Not just on the ground, but across every digital battleground online. Asterisk through it all. The Secret Service stayed silent, doing what they always do, protecting without applause. For them, the job wasn't about headlines. It was about the sacred promise that the seat of government would never fall, no matter who sat in the Oval Office. Lingered. Officials quietly reviewed camera footage, rechecked perimeter data, replayed the chain of command. Every second of delay mattered, every oversight scrutinized. It wasn't just about one man crashing a car, it was about whether the fortress could still live up to its myth outside. Onlookers still gathered at dawn, tourists with cameras, locals on morning jogs, reporters hoping for one more angle. The air was calm again, but the tension was not. Behind the gates, the world carried on. A president briefed, security protocols reviewed, statements crafted. But the question that hung in the air was far heavier than the crash itself. If someone could reach the gate tonight, what might come tomorrow? Because sometimes the real danger isn't the impact. It's what the impact reveals: a system stretched thin, a nation on edge, a people wondering whether their symbols still mean what they used to hand as the investigation began. One chilling truth started to form. This wasn't just an accident. It was a signal, a reminder. The next chapter wouldn't just be about how it happened, but why. By morning, America had a face to put to the fear, but not a story. The man behind the wheel, one who'd slammed into the White House barrier and rattled the nation's sense of security, sat silent in federal custody. His name was released briefly, then buried beneath legal phrasing and ongoing investigation. Yes. What mattered more than his identity was the question echoing through the halls of power: why? Asterisk, the Washington Post confirmed the immediate facts: no weapons, no explosives, no coordinated plan. The vehicle had been scanned, cleared, and to the relief of the Secret Service, deemed safe. But that very word safe felt hollow. How safe could it really be when the line between chaos and control had been breached so easily? Asterisk, investigators swarmed over every inch of the crash site. Forensic teams analyzed skid marks, tire pressure, impact patterns, even the driver's breathing and the body cam footage. The official line was clear: there is no ongoing threat. Yet the unspoken truth lingered. They didn't know what the man wanted. And in politics, uncertainty is the most dangerous threat of all. Asterisk, the driver's story began to emerge in fragments. He wasn't on any known terror watch list. He had no military record, no political manifesto left behind. Neighbors described him as quiet, troubled, lonely. But one detail stood out: he'd been posting online in the days leading up to the crash, cryptic messages about breaking through walls and making them. Listen, that phrase alone sent analysts scrambling. Was this a protest? A cry for help? Or something more sinister? An act of symbolism, not destruction? Asterisk, as the media dug deeper, the comparisons began. The 2014 intrusion, when a man scaled the fence and made it into the East Room before being tackled. The 2023 barrier crash, another late-night impact that left a similar scar on the outer perimeter. Each time the question resurfaced: is this an isolated act of desperation, or a symptom of something larger, a nation unraveling at the edges? Asterisk, the pattern was undeniable. The world's most fortified home had become a magnet for the disturbed, the disillusioned, the angry. It wasn't about assassination anymore. It was about symbolism. Every breach, every failed attempt, was a challenge to the myth of invincibility that the White House was built upon. Asterisk, within the West Wing. That realization cut deep. Officials gathered around screens, reviewing the footage in slow motion. The moment of impact replayed again and again. The flash of headlights, the crumple of metal, the agents swarming. For the Secret Service, this wasn't just about preventing a tragedy. It was about proving that the system still held. Because if they couldn't control this narrative, the entire perception of presidential safety would crumble. Asterisk, but something else began to shift beneath the surface. The story wasn't following the script people expected. It wasn't an organized plot, not a political statement, not even a coordinated act of violence. It was something raw, more human, a collision born out of desperation, confusion, perhaps madness. And that, paradoxically, made it even more unsettling. Because how do you defend against chaos without reason? Asterisk analysts appeared on every network trying to explain it. This is not about the physical barrier, one security expert said. It's about the psychological one. Every time someone tries to breach it, they're testing the country's belief in control. Asterisk behind closed doors, the conversation grew heavier. Was this the new normal? An age where every act of instability could strike the heart of government. Not through terrorism, but through loneliness, anger, or ideology gone astray. The villain in this case wasn't a foreign agent or extremist. It was something closer to home, a citizen cracking under the weight of a fractured nation. Asterisk, and yet, for all the chaos, there was relief, quiet, disciplined relief among those who had stood between the driver and the building. The Secret Service had reacted flawlessly. No injuries. No breaches beyond the gate. In that precision lay the proof that America's protectors still worked as intended. They had turned potential catastrophe into control within seconds. The system, though tested, had not failed. But relief was short-lived. The deeper the investigation went, the more uncomfortable the truth became. The driver's motives, though muddled, mirrored a pattern authorities didn't want to acknowledge. Growing frustration among citizens who felt unseen, unheard, and pushed to extremes. This wasn't an isolated crash. It was a symptom of disconnection. Asterisk as reporters revisited the scene, the bent barrier stood repaired, painted over, almost normal. But the story behind it was anything but. The image of that moment, one man's rage colliding with the symbol of American power, had become a metaphor too large to ignore. Commentators called it the night the illusion cracked. Asterisk for every expert insisting this was a one-off act, another saw it as a warning. If desperation could reach the gate tonight, what could it reach tomorrow? The boundaries between security and unrest, authority and anarchy.